Hi, this is Melaine Sebastian with my Microsoft Word training videos. Today we are going to do the page layout tab, the second half that wasn't covered in the other video. So to start off, I'm using the snail essay, the one that's halfway edited, and let's dive right in. So we left off last time with the page setup section. We're going to go on to page background right now. So the very first thing you're going to see is a watermark. Well, what's a watermark? It's a mark that can kind of display a message behind your document that's not part of it. So a common watermark is going to be something like confidential, meaning don't go showing this document to a bunch of people. And I can have it set as diagonal. There's one that goes side to side. And notice how you can still read the text that's on top. The watermark just means it goes behind, as if it's washed out by water. There are do not copy default watermarks, but of course we can be picky as usual and make our own. So if you scroll down, there are some more options in the urgent and the disclaimers category. This was the confidential category. But you can always go down to the bottom of the drop down and click custom. Once you do that, you can change the language of your watermark. If you're using text, you could go back to having no watermark. And here you can just edit this to say whatever you'd like. So I'm going to put on my caps lock and type snails. And the font you can mess with. You can change the size. So these are going to be a lot smaller. Color. Let's go with orange. And then the orientation, you can apply it, see how it looks. And from what I can see, this is entirely too small, so maybe going with auto was a better option. So I click OK, and there it is. Now, you're not limited to text. You can do pictures, so you can always select your picture. You can go with Beyonce if you want, and then it'll decide on the scale of the picture for you, and you can do washout or not washout. Now, if you don't do washout, it might be a little much. See, this is the washed out. It's a lot milder, but you don't have to go with that. You can have Beyonce staring at you through the paper if that's what you would like. Great, so that's it. For watermarks, pretty much the only other thing, you can pick some more pre-mades from online. You can take off your watermark, and then it'll let you save what you currently have to your watermark gallery, which is where you can save it almost as one of these defaults, but one that you've made, and then access it later. But I think I'm just going to remove that for right now. We don't need Beyonce looking at us for the rest of the tutorial. Let's go on to page color. And you can pick for your page to be different colors. You can go to more colors and you get the nice color wheels, or if you want to call it a color wheel, color palette. Okay. And lastly, fill effects will bring up the dialog box where you can choose between a gradient, a texture, like dead fish, yuck, a pattern where you can pick two colors. So maybe I want, I don't know, green and purple, and maybe I want this kind of argyle pattern. You can do all these things from the fill effects, and then the last one is pictures. So we could go back and get Beyonce again this way. Okay, and there she is. All right, so that's page color, but no color is probably what most people are used to. So let's go back to no color there. Next we have page borders. So let's open up page borders, and by default you're going to be on none, but you can do a box, a shadow, 3D, or custom. Let's just start off with a nice box border, and here you have the style of the border. So it could be like a double border, almost like a perforated, your call, and then you have some funkier ones down here. I like this little wave. double wave that we have here. You can change the color, the width. Oop, I can't change the width for these little waves, but let's go back to this guy up here. Oop, it changed my color. The width, you have a lot of selection there. A little thinner might be preferable. And then over here you get the preview. What's this going to look like, you know, once you've hit OK? And I can even add or remove certain parts of this border. So let me go ahead and apply that. Great, that looks nice, but what if I want to be more picky? Well, I can be, of course. Let's open it back up, the dialog box, and, well, what if I just want to apply it to this section, first page only, all except first page? I can do those things. Also, if I click on options, I can change how far the margin is from my text or from the edge of the page. I can tell it which one I want to measure from. So if I want the margins to be maybe a little tighter, we'll just, you know, change these numbers how you'd like them. Let's go and put, so it's measuring from the edge of the page. So if I want a smaller margin, then I'm going to want to turn these down a little, and I can see, you can see what happens. It's scooched closer to the edge of the page. Perfect. Now, let's change them back. I think it was on 23. Okay, and you can use the little bumpers here. Okay. Now, one more option that I forgot to show you, always display in front. So what does that mean? Well, let's click it and find out. If I move my snail in the corner, he cannot, or his picture cannot go on top of the border, because I said the border always has to be what's in the front of the stack. Okay, now one more option in our page borders. Instead of having one of these nice little textures or styles as we have currently, you can put some pretty awful art selections around the edges. So little radioactive symbols, you can do that. There you go. That's page borders. That's about it. Now, you may wish to do a shadow instead. So when you do a shadow, let's turn that on and see. It gives you the border that you saw with the box, but then it adds a shadow underneath as if it was floating, as if your text was maybe floating above a background page. There's also 3D, and then custom really allows you to play with the different sides of the margin or the border and change different parts of it. But that's more than we're going to get into as far as this tutorial is concerned. Now, let's look in this box at some of the other options you have. You can also add borders just to certain sections rather than to the entire page, and really the dialog box is identical in this tab. And then lastly we have shading. So let's go back to our page, and I'm going to pick, just grab a paragraph here, and shading just puts shading behind your text. So you can say apply to paragraph, or you could do all text. I'm just going to go with the paragraph, and there it is. It's purple and stays purple. It's almost like you highlighted it, but we don't say it's highlighted because that option was right here. This is just a shading instead. And then you can go get rid of it if you would like. You can go back, play with certain options. You can add very distracting textures to it, and you can just go back and say no color if you like. Uh-oh. Oh well, we're not worried about that right now. Okay, next, let's look at indent and spacing. Now, hopefully you've seen this before, because this is the same thing that you see in the Home tab when you use these options or this dialog box. In fact, the dialog box is the same one as we see in the Home tab. So there's nothing new here, but let's just do a little review on it. So I'm just going to go grab a paragraph down here, and indent pushes you from the left. If you're on the left indent, pushes you from the right. If you've done a right indent, let me just bump this up to 1.2. Okay, there's my 1.2 margin, and you can see the little margin marker on the ruler has scooched over 1.2 inches from my margin here. Same thing with the left indent. It'll all of this will just move on down, and you can go back and type 0 if you don't like these margins. Okay, spacing before and after, you can bump that up and see all it does, adds a little space right before your paragraph, and then after, adds space after, quite unsurprisingly. Cool. So this dialog box, if you want to see more about that, you can look on the Home tab, and you can freshen up on how to use this dialog box and the special things that you can do from here. But for now, we are going to move on to the Arrange group, or the Arrange section. So the Arrange section concerns things that aren't text. So this group right here, things that you would call illustrations that you've inserted into your document rather than typed. So I have this snail picture here. And the very first option is to position this little guy on my page. So inline with text is going to put that snail picture wherever, if you drag it, you're going to see this little cursor that's almost perforated, and that's where your picture goes. It represents where that picture is going to go. If you go back to position, though, these are called the with text wrapping options. So these are going to put your picture right where it shows in the little thumbnail, and the text is just going to have to be wrapped. And that's kind of a way of saying the text is just going to have to get out of the way, as we can see here. Okay, so you have middle center, you have top right, and if you want to see the exact names of these, middle right, you can hover over, but you can see from the thumbnail, you don't really need to see those names. Now, what did I just open up? I went to position, more layout options, and you can say, for example, horizontal, I want it to be centered relative to the margin, or I want it to be left relative to the margin. And it'll scooch it exactly where you tell it. So some of these match up with the default, the little thumbnails there, but you could change this to absolute position. And I can say, I want this to be absolutely a certain distance to the right of the margin. Okay, so let's see what that does. So notice how my picture has this little marker on it with respect to the margin. So the margin's here, the boundary between the gray and the white, and this picture was moved to exactly where I specified. I can also do this in a vertical direction, so I could say absolute position below the margin, or below the page, or below any of these options we have here. Maybe I want to do below the bottom margin. Well, that's not really going to make sense, right? So these are going to be in negative inches. Let's see what happens if I do that. So this is -9 inches below the bottom margin, which really means 9 inches above it. That's all that negative means. It's like a double negative, being below something, but a negative amount below means you're going to be above it. So that's how you can change the position. And if that's confusing to you, you don't have to do it in that manner. You know, you could say, well, I want it to be below the top margin, which naturally makes a lot more sense. Or you could use the alignment option. So you might just want it to be flush with the top. So I would say, well, I want it to be top relative to the page or top relative to the margin, whatever the case is, and it's just going to put it right there against your margin. Other options, you can say relative to, and that'll put it as a percentage. So maybe you want it to be exactly 20% between the margins. You can do that. You can say, okay, all right, and so it's pushed my picture to where it's 20% between the two margins, and you can change that anywhere from 0 to 100. Okay, you have some other options as well: move object with text, allow overlap, lock anchor, and then layout in table cell. We're not going to go into those options right now, but just know that they exist if you want to be even more picky. Now, in this dialog box, you have other tabs that are available to you, and those are also things that you can access with other buttons. So the wrap text,